Hello, hello, and welcome to Claus YouTube. Today we are going to discuss a very broad spectrum of geopolitics, which is various regions and also various multilateral groups which are there in the world. So it is a very wide canvas, and we will discuss it on maps so that when we are discussing our officers who are going to appear in defense services staff college are able to understand what we are talking, which are the countries involved visually. The impact is much better, so therefore they can actually assimilate better and reproduce it in the examination that much better. So with that brief kind of an introduction, we have Brigadier Bhatia who will be doing this, and it will be a freewheeling two-way discussion. Let's move ahead. Welcome to the show, Brigadier Bhatia, once again.
Thank you very much, sir.
Uh, so we start off with our presentation. We will be discussing geographical and economical military groupings of the world. Over to you to begin with. This is the map of the globe and the various regions that we are talking about. We will be talking, and these have been shown in color codes. As you can see, you have the North Americas, you have the Middle Americas, then you have South America. Thereafter, you have the North Africa, then Sub-Saharan groups, and then you have Europe, you have Russia, basically. Uh, then you have the Middle East, Central Asia, East Asia, South Asia, Southeast Asia, and of course, Australia and the Pacific Islands. So these are the major areas which we will be discussing one by one. Yeah, over to you, Vatia.
Sir, thank you very much, sir. In addition to what you have indicated, sir, these students will do well to understand that when we talk about East and West, it is with reference to the center, that is Europe. So, whatever is to the east of Europe is referred as the Middle East and the Far East and the East Asia or Southeast Asia, and whatever is to the west, especially United States, is referred as the West. And if we see in blue color is the Europe. Europe itself is further divided into various groupings, which are, you can say, regional groupings based on the cardinal directions of that particular subcontinent. So if we move to the next slide, how Europe is divided into various parts. If you see in the green color is the part of Northern Europe, and Iceland is included in that. Another way of referring to Europe is also the mainland Europe and the island. When we talk about the island Europe, it is we are referring to the Great Britain. Coming on to Russia is also part of Europe, part of Russia, in fact, is part of Europe. And then coming down to east of the center is called the Eastern Europe. One thing, whenever we talk about Eastern Europe, we are always reminded about the Warsaw Pact countries. It was in Eastern Europe that there was a competition going on between the NATO and the Warsaw. Now, NATO was the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which was led by the USA, who was the ultimate winner after the Second World War. And the Cold War rival of the West, led by US, as I had said, was that time USSR. So USSR was going ahead into the Eastern Europe to the extent that countries like Germany were divided into East Germany and West Germany. Look at the irony, sir. It was in 1991 that on one side the Germany united and the USSR exploded. So whenever, like I said, Eastern Europe, we are reminded of the Warsaw Pact countries which were aligned with that time USSR. The purple color countries which are there is the Western Europe, and in the yellow is the southern Europe, so as to say. So this is how, when we refer to Europe, our DSSC aspirant should be very clear that when we talk about, let's say, Eastern Europe, which are the countries which are part of Eastern Europe. So I think we won't go into details beyond this. This map would be there with the students. I will suggest to them that they should actually go in detail and should remember broadly which are the countries which fall into various geographical regions within Europe.
Just
Going
to add,
ahead, sir.
to what Brigadier Bhatia has said, in addition to Russia, which is partially called uh, part of a European continent and partially part of the Asian continent, Turkey also has a
Turkey.
similar kind of a division where part of Turkey is considered as European and the other part is considered as Asian. The Bosphorus River is the river which actually
Divide.
divides Europe and Asia. So these are the fault lines or the borders of Europe and Asia. And in addition, another distinction was East was considered poor and the West was considered rich. By and large, I'm not saying that every country was exactly poor or rich, but by and large, it was that the East European countries were considered poorer countries and the Western European countries were considered richer. So therefore, once that explosion took place, implosion happened. Most of the Eastern European countries wanted to merge with West Europe to get the benefits of European Union. Yeah, over to you.
And that is the reason that Turkey is the only Asian country which is part of NATO also, that is the North
Yeah,
Atlantic Treaty Organization.
correct.
So basically, because of this jutting out into Europe, and
Yeah,
now these countries have fought so many wars with each other. The concept of Westphalia, that is nation state, has emerged from this, and the concept of European Union has also come. We will talk about G20, where all the countries are being represented by one union, that is European Union. And interestingly, on the similar lines, Africa has also come out with African Union, which very
Union.
recently became part of G20s.
Yeah.
So, having discussed Europe, sir, we go ahead to North Africa. North African is represented in yellow color. Though Southwest Asia is also in yellow color, but North Africa basically has the Western Sahara, Morocco proper, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, and Sudan. Now, if you see a red colored line, this is generally the line which is called the African Transition Zone. Here, the geography, the history, the type of people who are there, it changes very rapidly. Another interesting thing that we'll talk about is Djibouti, which happens to be the place where French, Chinese, American, everybody seem to be having bases. Why? Because this is the entry to Red Sea. Now, recently, Red Sea has problem of Houthis, which are of Yemen origin. Importance of Red Sea is that this is the one which feeds into the Suez Canal. And in case now that Houthis are creating problems in Red Sea, we will see that how the shipping vessels are nowadays are not taking this route, but taking a longer route through the Cape of Hope, that is clearing the entire African continent. Going ahead, the other part of Africa is called Sub-Saharan Africa. Now, these are the countries which fall in Sub-Saharan Africa, and there are very important countries which exist in this. Now, why this is important to remember also, because these are the places where again the countries are poor, but they're very rich in natural resources. So there's a competition which is going on between, especially China, trying to acquire as much as control as is India. Now, who's winning the war? How they are being lured is a question which both the countries are trying to tackle. another importance of this is its proximity to Indian Ocean, which in turn is turning out to be a very very important region, especially for shipping and domination, because a large number of merchant vessels in which carry a lot of crude oil also passes through it, and there is a race which is going on between the nations to have control on the island nations which are there. If not control, at least have bases, especially for observation into the Indian Oceans.
Yeah.
Coming on to our own Asia, this map actually gives out how Asia is divided into, starting from the greenish part is the Western Asia. Now, this Western Asia is also at times referred to as Middle East, though there is a little bit of difference, but we will restrict ourselves to Western Asia as it is shown in green color. Going clockwise in pink color is Central Asia. Now, importance of Central Asia, firstly, they were part of the erstwhile Soviet Union, which had broken away. Most of them are stans, and again, they are rich in natural resources, especially gas and crude oil. This area is also finding importance because of the BRI project, because this is the land route or the bridge between China and Europe. And in fact, this region is also important for us, that in case we want a land connection to Europe, we have to go through Central Asia. And of course, our requirement of energy can also be met with Central Asian countries. Northern Asia is generally the Russian Federation, the part, as Sir had mentioned, part of it is in Europe and the rest is in Asia. Together they call the Eurasia area, that is Europe and Asia. Going down is Eastern Asia, primarily China, Mongolia, the two Koreans, and Japan. These are the countries which are referred to as East Asia. The countries which are mentioned in given in purple color are ASEAN countries, the Association of Southeast Asia. Now, this of late has become a sort of conflict ground for both, especially China and India, and also is being addressed by the US. The problem of South China Sea exists in this region, and also the Malacca dilemma of China is also in Southeast Asian countries. Having seen it in broadly, let's go
So,
little bit
so
in
I would,
details.
I would, I would only highlight to you all two things which Brigadier Bhatia has said in this, as far as this particular region is concerned. The Asian continent is the largest continent. That is one thing which we must take into mind. It has the maximum conflicts which have occurred in historically also and currently also. If you see all the hotspots, barring North Africa, most of it is now either in Asia or bordering Asia. So the European conflict, which is happening between Europe and Russia, is also, you can say, somewhat linked to this region, a very, very volatile region. It is also the center of the earth, and therefore there was this McClelland's theory,
Uh-huh.
which said that no, no, McClelland's theory, which said that those who control the center control the world, and Mahan is the other way around. He says that those who control the seas control the world. The
Correct.
English people believed in that. The Russians believe in the center of gravity, center of the earth theory, including the Chinese, who call themselves as the
Middle Kingdom.
Middle Kingdom. Otherwise, the center is exactly between Russia, China, Mongolia, and Central Asia. Somewhere in the center, I'm forgetting the names. It starts with G. The name I'll recollect it and I'll let you know. That is the actually true center of the earth. So it has been always witnessing major conflicts. Okay, over to you.
Sir, I missed out on Southern Asia. South Asia is where India is located. It includes Afghanistan, Pakistan, in addition to India, Sri
Yeah,
Lanka, Bhutan, Nepal, and Bangladesh. Now,
correct.
this is also a very volatile region. Two of the countries are nuclear powers, and the population is also density is the highest in the world in these regions. So we go ahead and see these regions in detail, sir. In the next map, you see the West Asia. Sir, as you had mentioned, this area has Red Sea, where I have already spoken about the hijacking of ships that is taking place.
Yes,
Israel, Palestine, Lebanon, Jordan, Iran, Armenia, Georgia, all these nations have something or the other all the time simmering, and if I may say, uh, anything can trigger a sort of war. Recently, we have seen conflict between Iran and Israel. We have also seen involvement of Qatar in Israel. We've seen how in Yemen against the Israelis, like I said, the shipment is being stopped. So a lot of things are happening in this region, and our students should be very clear about the geography. Saudi Arabia is a very important country. In addition to leading the Islamic world, it has ideological differences with Iraq, with Iran. Iraq has issues with each other, primarily Shias and Sunni. The effect of this area is also in our immediate neighborhood in Afghanistan as well as in Pakistan.
correct.
Going ahead, sir, now this is the Bab al Mandab, which is the entry to Red Sea and Suez Canal that I had spoken about. Because of the conflicts that are going on here, the ships nowadays are taking the longer route and going around Cape of Good Hope. And this somehow I have a feeling that this is the important question which our DSSC aspirants must prepare about the situation in Red Sea. And also, Indian Navy had undertaken successful anti-piracy operations. In addition, there are anti-piracy forces which are active, and here, in fact, China and India are cooperating with each other. There are under the UN. We are also cooperating and guiding ships from one location to another.
Okay.
We go ahead with the next slide, sir. This is the East Asia, where I had said is China, Mongolia. Northeast China is basically the area of Manchurian area, which traditionally had Japanese impact. And there are a lot of factories also, especially of Japanese origin, because this nation, there are a lot of people who speak Japanese language. So Japanese industries outsourcing, that is production, is being handled in Manchuria area. Another way it is important is that this is the region where there is a border dispute between China and Russia. So with that angle also, this area is important. Then the only country with which China has an official defense agreement is North Korea, which is also located in East Asia, and then there is South Asia and Japan. So together, this constitutes East Asia. Next, we will talk about the next slide, sir. We'll talk about ASEAN countries as we see mainland, because the countries like ASEAN countries start in our immediate neighborhood: Myanmar, Laos, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia. These are extension of the mainland Asia. That's why they call the mainland countries. And thereafter is the insular region, which is primarily islands, which include the major one are Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, Philippines. Now, these are all somehow connected to each other, and they have a what you call conflict with maritime conflict with China. We will talk about it in slight details slightly later. Sir. So to have a look see which are the countries which are part of ASEAN, we go to the next slide. Our students who are preparing for DSSC are very well aware of this region because it's the Vietnamese war with China of 1979 in the military history campaign. So they would have realized the importance of Southeast Asia as far as China is concerned. The major reason of entering into Vietnam was because China considers this region as its backyard. It does not want any sort of interference in this region. As I had spoken, these are the countries which are in ASEAN countries. They have very successfully created an economic forum for themselves also. But unfortunately, like NATO or any overwhelming, there is no security pact between these nations. So that's the reason China is asserting itself in the region without being challenged by any of the nation collectively. Though Philippines had gone to UN with their claims on Scorpolo shoal, but after having won also, China is refusing to recognize the UN orders on the issues. But yes, economically, these countries have coordinated with each other, and they are the Asian tigers whose economy, went ahead in the previous few decades. Now, this yet another region is the Australian region, and then there are a lot of, and this is combined with Pacific Islands as well as New Zealand. Now, there are a lot of islands which assumed importance with respect to China. There is a competition between the US and China to take control of these islands, which are collectively spread all over the Pacific region. Now, these islands become very important. Firstly, you have Guam, you have Philippines, you have smaller countries like Marshall Island and Palau and all these nations, which actually are so located that for resupply and deployment of long-range weapons, with that reference, it becomes very important to take control of these small little nations. If we go in the next slide, you will have you will be able to see that how many islands are yes. So they are now. Indonesia itself is there are large number of islands. To the northeast of Indonesia is called the Micronesia, where you have small little countries like I mentioned, Marshall Islands. Then there are Polynesias, so New Zealand. So these islands, to take control of Pacific region, taking control of these islands is extremely important. So if we go to the next slide, this is repetition of the same map, sir, where the countries have been named, all those Asian countries. Okay, we will talk about those countries slightly later, that dynamics when we talk about the military groupings. Now, economically, the countries are G7 meeting is recently, in fact, it is underway in Italy as of now. So G7 is the most developed countries form part of G7, which include Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, United Kingdom, and United States of America. If we include Russia into G7, it becomes G8. G8 plus countries like Argentina, Australia, Brazil, China, European Union, I have mentioned about European Union is taken as one entity. India, Indonesia, Mexico, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, South Korea, and Turkey. And recently, African Union was also included in the last G20 summit that had taken place in Delhi. Again, an important question which our students must prepare. It was one of the achievements of India to host a successful G20 meeting in India. Now, why G20 is important? It accounts for 85% of the world trade. In addition to 19 countries plus European Union plus African Union, G20 countries is also the governors of central bank, including IMF and the World Bank, are also part of the deliberations during the G20. So this much about G20. Like I had mentioned, since G7 is taking place as of now, G20 has taken place recently in India. So our DSSC aspirants can expect a question on this economic groupings. Sir, going ahead with the now coming on to there is little bit of mixture I am doing is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Now this was led by the United States. All the nations which are along the North Atlantic Ocean, as you can see in the map, are part of NATO. This is in purple color. That includes Canada, Greenland, Iceland, United Kingdom, Spain, Italy, Luxembourg, and Turkey. Norway is also part of the NATO. Now, recently, the Russian-Ukraine war was also because Ukraine was supposedly to have joined NATO. Sir, I'll request you to please elaborate a bit for our students.
Just say again about NATO.
Sir,
Okay.
I was talking about the Russian-Ukraine war. How NATO's admission of Ukraine in NATO was an issue.
Okay. You see, as far as NATO is concerned, it lost relevance in 1990 with the implosion of USSR, and various countries which were part of USSR split from it. Essentially, the Central Asian countries and the East European countries. The maps which you saw earlier, the Central Asian countries, you can broadly remember for young aspirants of staff college, all the countries of Central Asia were named as Stan, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, so
Uzbekistan.
Uzbekistan. So all these countries were considered as Central Asian countries, mostly Islamic in religious content. So therefore, they split from Russia and were later on referred to as Central Asian countries. Then you had the East European countries, which were again the poor cousins of the West Europeans. You had countries which are now separate, Czechoslovakia, etc. All these countries were, Ukraine was part of USSR. It split from Ukraine, Georgia, Ukraine. These were the countries, Belarusia. All these countries, then they were in the periphery and split away from USSR, and Russia became independently. Bulk of the USSR remained as what we call it as Russia. So therefore, NATO lost relevance. Why NATO lost relevance was because NATO had come up as as a kind of a counter to Warsaw Pact countries. Now, Warsaw Pact countries were led by USSR, and in which you had all these. Poland was also part of the Warsaw Pact countries. So first thing which happened was that the Warsaw and NATO, since they lost relevance, NATO's existence was threatened. But America didn't want NATO to lose relevance, so it kept on investing in Europe. Now, in order to keep NATO relevant, it started expanding from its existing 8 9 countries, and today there are almost 19 countries. What they started doing was all the European countries which had split away from USSR, they started including them in the NATO, sorry, in firstly the process was, firstly they would include it in the European Union, and slowly they would then get included into the NATO. NATO was the securitization of or the military alignment of this particular region. Now what happened with this was that as the countries were going into NATO, the boundaries to the Russia was getting closer and closer. The last straw was Ukraine, because Ukraine was directly
Okay.
on the border of Russia. So that became a major threat for Russia, because it would mean that NATO and Russia are now sharing border. It's like, if I were to simply explain, India and Pakistan. So Ukraine was that big boundary. If you see the boundary of Ukraine and Russia, it's a large boundary which is now facing Russia. At the time of split, or at the time when the USSR fell apart, it is said that there was an agreement made that NATO will not expand eastwards. It will not include countries which were erstwhile part of USSR, so that Russia remains unthreatened from NATO's threat. However, NATO did not pay any heed to this particular agreement. There is a dispute on this, whether this agreement was really there or not there. People say it was verbal. People say that Michael Gorbachev was told accordingly, and then accordingly, Michael Gorbachev had told the Russians that this is how the NATO will behave in future. That did not happen. So when USSR or Russia came under a very strong leadership of Putin, he said enough is enough, and he must stop this process of NATO expansion eastward. And therefore, he first went into Crimea and took over Crimea. He also tried that with Georgia, and then he started influencing the other countries, like Belarusia is now firmly with the Russians. Ukraine was also accordingly manipulated, or I would say influenced, to ensure that a pro Russian president was elected in 2013. However, it is believed that West led internal upheavals were carried out within Ukraine, and the pro Russian ruler was removed, and a pro West ruler was brought into place. He served for 4 5 years. Situation was being managed, but then Zelensky became the president. Once Zelensky became the president, things came out in the open. They became more violent, and especially once eastern Ukraine was taken over by the Russians in 2014, it became a kind of a divide. Ukraine got divided into two. This situation carried on for a face to face. It's like India-Pakistan situation, which carried on in Europe, in Ukraine, for about 6 7 8 years. In 2022, then Putin decided to actually launch an operation. They call it as special military operation. They don't call it as war, to assimilate most of the Russian speaking areas of Ukraine into Russia, and accordingly, they launched the operation in February 2022. And since then, we are seeing a long drawn, extended war. The war would not have extended to this duration had Ukraine not been supplied by
Correct.
defense wherewithal through the West. So essentially, now because of a Western support, this particular war is now become a kind of a face-off situation where nobody is willing to now go back. Uh, for the West, it is a battleground where they are testing all their weapons. They are actually their defense industries benefiting. The American defense industry is having a great time. As far as the Russians were concerned, they are also now on some kind of a stress because of the quantum of expenditure which is taking place. It is believed that 900 million dollars per day is the expenditure of the war as far as Russia is concerned. So they are also losing a lot of money, but they are also, I believe, getting supported by pro China, pro Russia countries, which are giving them weapons and equipment, also helping them actually establish industries to revamp their production.
Yeah.
Essentially, you will find that because the West laid sanctions on Russia, the Russian economy is actually growing, not reducing. Unlike in a war, you will find that economies of the country start going down. But in the case of Russia, it is growing by about 3.84%, which is huge. And
Yes.
people are saying that it might just cross India if they are growing the way they are growing because of the war economy, which is an unlikely phenomena, essentially because of their power of the crude oil and gas, which they are able to supply. Earlier, they used to give it to Europe. They did not make that much of profit, but now countries like India, China are dependent to a great extent on the crude oil and gas of Russia. So therefore, the situation today is that there is a face-off between Russia and Ukraine. The West is trying to support by all means. They have also the latest move is that they want to actually give the interest which is being earned from the frozen money of of Russia, which is held in various banks of Western countries, to fund the war for Ukraine. So you will find that this till the time both the sides are being given support to fight this war is going to continue. Of course, the Russians have an edge unless and until there is a physical intervention by the West. The the doomsday is always there for Ukraine. Ukraine has suffered the max. One will have to look at it how the war is going to further progress. But my sense is that it is going to continue for another 8 to 9 months uh, till any decisive action is taken. And we expect a decisive action only after the US elections, which are going to be in November. So till then, I think you will see more of the Russia-Ukraine war dragging along with minor fluctuations in operations which will take on both sides. Yeah, over to you.
Sir, that was a wonderful explanation. I think if DSSC students just listen to this and make few notes, and since it's an ongoing conflict, again, it's an important subject which students must prepare. Sir, having seen this dynamics of Russia and Ukraine, sir, we go ahead with the next slides. Similarly, the Shanghai Cooperation is another outfit which has come up. Now, this security grouping is led by China. India as well as Pakistan both are the member of this cooperation. They primarily carry out anti-terrorism exercises with each other. There are observer states and dialogue partners which are listed onto the slide, and there are also guest attendances. Now, this forming of this grouping is basically trying to say that China is also in league to become a superpower and leading a grouping. Shanghai Corporation is also involved in helping economically to few of these countries, but of late the activities are on low key in as far as SCOs are concerned. Students will do well to remember that this is led by China and all the Central Asian republics, as well as those countries which have a higher stake in BRI are the member states of this corporation. We go ahead, sir, and the next area that we are going to discuss is Five Eyes. Sir, I have not kept anything particularly in mind while arranging these slides. This was as the subjects keep coming in my mind. I took out few maps and figures which students can see and then prepare accordingly. Now, Five Eyes is basically the intelligence sharing mechanism between Canada, USA, New Zealand, UK, and
Australia.
Australia. Now, these are the democratic countries which are white, where the population is British, where they are sharing. But if you see the geographical location of these areas, they are all very, they're very vital for as far as intelligence collection is concerned. And there are cooperation. There were problems when there were issues between India and Canada. That is the time we were hearing about this Five Eyes quite frequently. Again, DSSC aspirants will, I'll recommend that they should read this detailed explanation. In fact, sir, the notes that Claus has prepared, all these issues have been covered very well. If the students pay attention to the maps and the way we have explained the region, along with it, the notes will then remember. And as you keep saying, you have said it in the previous episodes also, दिमाग में खाका बन जाता है कि which country is located at which location and it is part of which grouping. See, every grouping has something called centrifugal and centripetal forces. There are few issues which attract each other countries. Geographically, there is lot which is in common, and at times either it is the economic cooperation or military cooperation which is attracting, and they became the binding factors between the countries. If you see the location of these various countries, either they can be part of the same grouping or they are so located that they complement each other and enable the other country to operate in a particular fashion, sir. Either providing a suitable ground to operate or to keep that area under observation or to place some forces at that location. So from that point of view, sir,
I would like to just add to what Brigadier Bhatia is saying, that this was a grouping initially which was started immediately after the Second World War. It is not a new grouping, first
yes,
of all. The second point which you all must know is that this was a grouping not essentially of the white people, but it was a grouping which was under the British rule, people who were influenced by the British rule. So you will find Canada, America, Britain, Australia, and New Zealand. So these were the basically Queen's influence countries. That's why you'll not find France in this. You will not find the other countries which are there, Germany, etc. They are not there in this particular grouping. So it came suddenly into being because of the incident of the Canadian incident where India was involved, Niger, and the Gurpatwan Pannu incident where these agencies actually helped each other in identifying the India connection as per them, although nothing was proved later on. And both Canada had to actually come out with a statement saying that there is no India connection, etc. But although on ground they continue to support the terror elements within their country. For us, there are terror elements. For them, are part of the freedom of expression, etc. That is the view which people take depending on which side somebody is. But we will not go into that kind of a argument or discussion. Suffice it to say, it is a grouping where they share in intelligence amongst themselves and use it. Not necessarily it's a white countries grouping, France,
fine, sir.
Germany. There
That
are other
was
countries which are there.
that was
That
addition
mechanism,
to.
that is a NATO mechanism where they are able to share. So that's a different mechanism altogether.
Okay.
Okay.
I was under the impression that this is a new grouping, sir. When this is
No, no,
added
no,
to
no,
our
no. Please
information.
read it. This is a
Fine.
very, very old
Okay.
grouping. Very old grouping. It's a
Okay.
very old grouping. Yeah.
Okay, sir. No, this was I didn't know this. Okay, sir. Sir, we
It,
move to the next
came
grouping, sir.
it came into the news because of the
Yeah,
activity which they
probably
did.
that's why I missed it, sir.
First time it resurfaced. Let me put it
Right.
this way.
Right.
Otherwise, it was kept underground, quietly hidden.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Now this is quads. Now here a very interesting map. If we see the location, normally we treat the Earth as flat. We don't realize that Russia and US share a boundary which is just about I think three miles away from each other in the Bering Straits. So if we see, there are four countries quadrilateral cooperation: India, Australia, USA, and Japan. So this makes a quadrilateral. In fact, at one time it was also in the initial stage it was called the diamond grouping also, but now it is the quad. Now this is to contain activities of China in the Pacific region, though it is not so much to do with the military grouping per se, but definitely China alleges that it is against China that this grouping has been created. Again, democratic countries who have interest in the Indo-Pacific region, and a cooperation between the various countries that I have, these four countries, that is India, Australia, US, and Japan. This is a grouping of these four countries.
Uh, Out here, I would like to just highlight that Quad essentially was meant to be a
Yes.
economic grouping, as also grouping to essentially streamline the operations, maritime operations in the Indo-Pacific, as a means to balance the Chinese influence which was going on out here. The securitization of Quad had not taken place. And accordingly, because of this and because of the fact that in South China Sea, a number of violent activities were being undertaken by China, the US has entered into a separate grouping which is called the Squad. Now, the
Yes.
squad is something which is SQAD. Squad means there is no acronym for squad. It is just an alternate name which they have suggested, not to confuse with squad. So, I would simply tell you that if you want to remember what is the difference between quad and squad, that quad is a non-security
Yes.
organization which includes India. Squad is a security arrangement. That is why the word S is used, of four countries in which India is not part of it. In that, the countries which are part of it, the four countries which are part of it, are the three countries of Quad are already there. Instead of India, they have added Philippines into it.
Yes.
So it is a country which is specifically located at the northern edge of the South China Sea, which with countries and East China Sea, which includes Japan, uh, Philippines, Australia, and of course US is the overall big brother in this. It's a security arrangement. It is meant to prevent the Chinese from going through the South China Sea or East China Sea. That is called the first island chain, second island chain into the Pacific Ocean. So that is the difference between Squad and Quad. India, whether we should securitize Quad also in a similar manner, is a debate which is ongoing within the country. There are people supporting securitization of Quad. There are people who don't support Quad. Uh, but willy nilly, what will happen? My view is that over a long period of time, securitization of Quad is also going to
Yes.
take place. In any case, we are having a number of exercises between the four countries, military exercise, naval military exercises, which is kind of a step towards going towards securitization of
This
Quad. But
Malabar exercises were part of this.
yes, even Malabar, even the other exercises which
Yes.
happened off the coast of Australia, which was
Correct.
organized by Australia, India took part in that. So those are all part of the this kind of a, I would say, trend which might ultimately lead to Quad also getting securitized. So with that, I think brief, I thought interjection. Over to you,
Yes.
Hatya.
Sir. Sir, we go ahead. What you have said in the next map, it will be very clear, sir. Why these countries have decided, sir. Now, see where China is located, where the ASEAN countries are there. So it is geographically it is closer if we go through Pacific. Though Pacific Ocean has its own challenges. So that is why I wanted to bring out the importance of ASEAN countries, specifically Philippines that you have mentioned, and Japan.
Yeah,
So
this is
these
the
part of East Asia and
yeah.
Philippines here, with reference to South China Sea. There is a map regarding South China Sea and the nine dash line also, so we will cover it subsequently.
Yeah.
BRICS, again another grouping where China and India both are part of this organization called the countries which are, it's an acronym of countries: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. This is more economic cooperation between these five countries, which is the purpose of this coordination. Again, we will leave it at this, sir. I think we go ahead, and this is a topic which students need to prepare. So, very quickly, places and news where the conflict is going on. Uh, uh, Israel Hamas, there is no doubt that students need to prepare. They should be clear about what is Gaza Strip, what is West Bank, how Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Egypt are involved in this, how Hamas is being held by Iran, what are the dynamics of Israel and US relationship, so, and how Iran is helping Hamas, and why Iran is helping Hamas. So all these factors must be considered. This is just to bring to the notice. I'm sure students are preparing on these topics. Red Sea, sir, we have already covered here. Only thing which I mentioned is how the Suez Canal is being used, and how from Gulf of Aden locate Djibouti, and then Red Sea, and then on to Suez Canal and getting into Mediterranean, and how this is working. Another important strait is Strait of Hormuz, which also has strategic importance, economic importance. That has also been marked. So it was aim was to just draw attention of students to go through these two places very in detail, because questions may be asked from these two locations.
Basically, what we would like to highlight to you here is that these are considered as the economic lifeline of the world.
As
They
well as
cut,
the choke points, sir.
yeah, and they cut. Yeah, obviously, they become the choke point, but economically, they are the lifeline of the world. If you cut the Red Sea route, the ships have to go via the Horn of Africa, go down, come up to this area. The whole supply chain becomes very long. The cost factors would increase. So therefore, security of the Red Sea, security of the Mediterranean, Suez Canal, Gulf of Aden is very important, and that is why you used to have the Somalian pirates who were active in this area, and all the countries from here on up to the South China Sea used to up to the Indian Ocean region used to actually escort their ships in a kind of a convoy format for quite some time. The Chinese are present here for that. The Indians also have their presence here, and Indians have been rescuing a number of ships which get held by the pirates for ransom and other aspects. You must have heard it in the news. In the past few months, we have actually rescued crew from various countries, not only India, but from other countries as well. So, India is doing a great job here. As far as the Persian Gulf is concerned, it is the Houthis who are very active here, and therefore, there is an American led task force which is actually trying to ensure that this particular strait also remains through and remains green, because most of the oil comes from this. If you look at Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, Oman, Kuwait, Iraq,
Sure.
Iran. I mean, this is the I would say it is not water, it is oil which is floating in Persian Gulf, and therefore it becomes that much more important in the short term. Once the people get to renewable energies and alternate source of energies, we will see then. But for the time being, these two are actually resource driven conflicts which are taking place, besides the other internal factors which are there. But resource is one of the major factors for conflict, and the students must be very clear of these two areas. So this map, please put it in your mind, and just don't forget about it. There will be a question on this.
Yeah, there will be,
Where
sir.
are where are the Somalian pirates who operate, or where are the Houthis? Where are they operating? What is the dynamics of Houthi rebels, and what is the dynamics of the Somalian pirates, etc. Yeah, over to you.
And anti-piracy that you have mentioned, sir.
Yeah.
In addition to gaining experience, we are also carrying a lot of maritime domain awareness also by carrying out these.
Mm.
So these are not purely economic; they are military fallouts
Absolutely.
also of this. In the
Djibouti.
Chinese, I mean, you are going to various countries. There is a diplomatic calls also which the ships are making. There are, like, Chinese have been sending the medical ships and the hospital ships to various locations. Similarly, they're carrying out the hydrographical data they are collecting. So there are a lot of issues which are connected. So it should not be taken in isolation as one activity.
You see, if you look at it, Djibouti is a
Yes,
military base at the mouth of Red Sea, and you have all the countries here. You have
all the
France
countries,
in Djibouti, you have the Americans in Djibouti,
US,
you have
China.
Chinese in Djibouti, and now Indians are also trying to
Yes,
get into Djibouti. We already have some presence there, so you will find bulk of the powers actually having their presence in Djibouti. Also, see the Red Sea. The countries on either side of Red Sea are consistently in conflict.
in conflict. Yes,
Ethiopia, Eritrea, Sudan, Yemen, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Jordan and Israel. Look at the conflict, and similarly, you'll find along the Persian Gulf, Iran, Iraq,
yes,
Kuwait, Qatar. Qatar, to that extent, yeah, even to some extent, Qatar and
yes.
Oman have kept themselves little different. Qatar, Oman, UAE, they are playing a better game in this area, not to get involved in to any kind of a
There
conflict.
is a
Okay.
there is a term there is a term called resource curse, sir. So the
Yes.
any country which is resource, a lot of resources, it is also cursed with
Yeah.
distractions. It seems. Shall we go ahead,
So
sir?
yeah.
Sir, in addition, the another question which may be asked is India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor, wherein from Mumbai, Kandla, and there's one more port. Uh, the connectivity is multimodal. That is from
Mm.
Mumbai to UAE. That is Jabal Ali, sir, is by ship, and then by train. It goes on, and thereafter at Haifa, Israel, and then into Greece, and then goes on to Europe and USA. And this was led by the USA. This project, I think during G20 it was announced. So it is called the Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment. It is also being compared to the Belt and Road Initiative of China. Is it a counter to the BRI, which has been spoken about in last few years? I think 2013 it was announced, and since then we are hearing about BRI. But what happens to IMAC in view of the conflict, ongoing conflict in West Asia? Are these countries going to cooperate only for economic reasons? Because, like we have just said, there are ideological problems between the countries which are involved. So, how it is going to come up? But since it is led by US and all the countries which are involved are some way are related either due to security pacts or economic reasons with the USA, this might come through as a rival to BRIs.
Yeah. Two things which you must understand. It's a kind of an Indian driven initiative. That's one aspect. It has the G20 blessings behind it. That is the second big point. Third, it also has, in principle, support of all the transit countries through which
Yes,
this particular transit corridor is going to be going through. Fourth, there are challenges in this, and these challenges are essentially First one would be in the sea between Mumbai and the West Asian countries, which is of the Houthis, etc. That would be one challenge it is being faced. When this particular initiative was declared, Israel came under Hamas attack, and the whole idea of Haifa, there was a deal going on for Haifa port to be upgraded, etc., and then converted as part of this. The rail link, etc., is already existing. In fact, work
Yes.
is going on rail link in the West Asian countries. India is a big part of that initiative. So the Haifa fort is a challenge now because of the conflict which is going on in that area, and also traditionally in that area you have the conflict between Lebanon and Israel, etc. So that is one challenge which they have to overtake. And the fifth characteristics of this entire initiative is we are avoiding Turkey and going straight to Greece. Greece and Turkey do not look eye to eye with each other. You would have found Prime Minister during his second tenure had actually gone to Greece essentially to strengthen this particular arrangement. Greece seems to be on board, but then the Turks are not happy about it. So, the war which is going on between Israel and Hamas, the Turks are on the side of the Hamas, essentially also looking at their interests because of this major transit corridor. Because if it happens, it will be a game changer. It will be a counter response to BRI. BRI will become unsustainable because bulk of the countries here are in support of this particular initiative. Yeah, over to you.
But somehow there is a feeling, right or wrong, because this project seems to be very benign, sort of the countries
Yeah,
which are involved.
no,
They're
but
purely from economic point of view.
the
Whereas the
idea
BRI,
the idea is to be benign,
yes,
so that
yes,
you present a model which is not intrusive, which is not looking at the security, which is not looking at that country being taken over by the countries which are involved in making of this project. It's a grouping of countries which are doing it,
yes.
so no, not one single country has a say. In BRI, it's always China which is having the final say. So whatever China says, that is to be done. That is the difference between this particular initiative and the, but then there are challenges, like I said, in the execution of this. So benignness is the USP of this
Yes,
actual
absolutely,
project.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
another very interesting topic which I came across, I thought I must mention, because this is somehow an important thing, but then people tend to miss out, is the North Sea route. Now this is how India is involved. That we are also talking about China and Vladivostok link, and through there, it is the shortest route between the European part of Russia and the Far East, which is just about 14,000 kilometers. And if they come via the Suez Canal, if they have to travel this distance, it is 23,700. Now, why Russia is in a position to do it? Because they have nuclear powered ice cutting equipment and ships which they have mastered, which no other country has. So, there is a possibility of a sea route that can be in place through the Arctic Ocean. And this is how India is also involved in this, that we don't have to take the circuitous route for trading with Russia in future. So this is an important development, and ultimately will benefit India also.
Yeah, there are major challenges in this. Essentially,
Yes.
the ice-clad region, ice-clad sea, which is there in the northern part of our Arctic, basin. So, therefore, if it comes through, it will be a game changer. But till then, we'll have to wait and watch as to how the this particular route progresses, as far as its navigation is concerned, as far as its viability is concerned. So with that, we'll move to the next one, which is
So here
essentially,
I have marked the Chabar port, which is there in Iran.
yeah,
Or again, this can become a game changer as far as connectivity of India is concerned. the biggest, the largest importance why this is important for India, Jhabbar port, is that we are avoiding Pakistan in this, totally avoiding, and we are reaching countries like Afghanistan and Central Asian Republic straight through this route. In case now, another thing is that we have got Jhabbar total rights recently. So we have signed the agreement that we've, in fact, it's on lease to us, which is the terms and condition the experts say is that this is a perpetual lease, sort of lease, which has got a provision to automatically keep renewal. In fact, China also is interested in this port, and Afghanistan has invested in this port. If we go in the next one, we'll see on map how exactly this port will be a game changer, like I said, sir. Look at the Jhabbar port locations, and Bandar Abbas port is another port which is located now from Mumbai. If you're going to Jhabbar, you are literally connected to the whole world. Whether it is connectivity to Moscow in the north or to Afghanistan, to even China is interested in this location, because again, my feel is that somehow, in case, not in case, CPEC is unlikely to come through. So is China looking at a route from Urumqi to Almaty, Tashkent, and then coming on to Tehran and coming down to these two ports in Iran?
Okay, so I wanted to just highlight the importance of this to the people who are listening. I was earlier mentioning about the Mahan's theory of sea power. As a counter to that theory was Mackinder's theory of land, land power, or they also call it as heartland versus rimland theory. Okay, so rimland are the countries which are on the edge of the seas, and heartland are the countries which are at the center of the land mass. Urmuki is considered, that is the name which I had forgotten. Since you just mentioned Urmuchi, it's actually Urmuchi. Urmuchi is the country which is the point which is
Yes.
considered as the center of this land mass. And Mackinder said that whosoever controls Central Asian countries controls the world, because the resources of the world are all concentrated in this particular area. So India is also possibly now working towards that, by getting into Chabahar, sidelining Pakistan, because the Taipei link is unlikely to Tajikistan, Pakistan link, Afghanistan link is unlikely to materialize. So our only option to go to Central Asian countries is via Iran, Chabahar, and and that is why India is pursuing Chabahar despite opposition from the United States of America, which doesn't want India to actually go through this route. But since it is in our national interest, and you can see why it is in our national interest, because the resources are here. Our countries which have traditionally been our friends are here in the Central Asian region, including Russia. So there is this effort being made to get this Mumbai Chabahar northwards Afghan, and you can also influence Afghanistan, and thereby uh, have some kind of a control over Pakistan, make it further weak, so that your western front is kept safe and secure. So it has both economic and military value, strategic value to this entire initiative, and you should understand from that perspective as well. Okay, go ahead.
Sir, in this map, I'll also draw the attention to the north-south transport corridor that is marked in yellow,
Yeah,
going from Moscow. So this also gives us the connectivity to the north-south transport
absolutely,
corridor that is
absolutely,
coming. Another point
absolutely.
that we missed out in IMAC is that there is also the oil pipeline and the communication cables which are to be laid along with the IMAC. So whenever there is a corridor that is coming up, when we talk about the corridor, it is not restricted to the road only.
Yeah,
There are oil pipelines, there are communication cables, there
really,
may be a railway line. So it's
absolutely.
called encompassing all sorts of mobility or
Corridor
communication.
corridor has everything, communications. It has it has pipelines,
Surface transportation.
it is transportation, multimodal transportation, not only a single mode
Correct.
transportation, etc. And we are not talking of air here because air definitely is a way to reach anywhere in the world. But the traffic which can go by air is much much lesser vis-a-vis what can go along the seas and along surface communication means. Yeah.
Next. Uh, Again, sir, this is one map I thought I must show, which shows the shipping lanes of communications. Look at the concentration of the shipping lanes along the Atlantic, the amount of traffic that flows. I will also draw the attention of students to the South China Sea, which is as you look at the screen towards your right, the number of sea lanes that exist there. So wherever these sort of sea lanes are concerned, so there will be attention drawn by the contenders to dominate this areas. So with this, if in case we see this map, importance of Indian Ocean region, again the concentration, and look at how close to the peninsular India that is jutting onto Indian Ocean are the shipping lanes, and why China should be, or rather China is worried about our dominance of Indian Ocean. Though they said that Indian Ocean, if just by name, does not that Indian Ocean belongs to India, but definitely the amount of dominance, geographical advantage we have cannot be ruled out by any nation. U.S. Navy along with Indian Navy can totally dominate this sea lanes of communication. And another thing, again, students can use these sort of information in answering the questions. Is unlike Russia, which has probably that's the country which has almost all resources. It is more or less self sufficient. It doesn't have to depend on any other country for imports, major imports. It has energy, it has metals, it has everything. China does not have energy resources. So China has to depend on imports as far as energy is concerned. And they are really worried about the interference from other countries, especially in the choke points, that is the Malacca Strait and the Strait of Hormuz. So that is the importance of this map which I wanted to bring out.
I mean, it's a self-explanatory map. Look at the sea power and its importance, and the choke points and their importance. Choke points in the South China Sea, choke points in the East China Sea, choke points around India, choke points in the Mediterranean, choke point in the Red Sea, choke point in the Persian, choke point further as you go into the Americas, across the North and the South American waterways, Panama Canal, etc. So these are the areas which will give you the bird's eye view of why geopolitics is being done the way it is being done. Okay, if we go to the next one, and this is probably the last.
Again, just a point of interest for students, this circle that has been drawn, there are more people living inside this circle than outside of it. So this is how the importance of this region. Now, this includes India, China, ASEAN countries, and this is
Absolutely.
in our immediate neighborhoods. And
Absolutely.
importantly, we have cultural linkages with these countries. So there is no reason that we should not dominate. In fact, the name Indo-China is because we had influence in that area, cultural influence in that area. And Buddhism is a very strong factor, especially in ASEAN countries. And in fact, why should we disown Islam? We have one fourth of our country's population is or 25, 26 crores. So why should we forget that also? So we have cultural, religious affiliation with these nations. So that is how I thought that India's look east or act east, as it is called today, is also an important consideration. Again, there may be a question from security, economic, every point of view. This region is extremely important for India.
Thank you, Brigadier Bhatia. I think today we have covered a very, very vast landscape of geopolitics, international relations, grouping, regions, explanation of each region, primary players of the world who are involved, why they are involved into various such multilateral platforms, the reason behind it. Thank you very much for the students. I would say just don't see the whole video in one go. Look at it from a piece by piece meal. You could listen to a particular portion for, let's say, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, absorb it, and then go to the next one. You will find it very, very handy for your current affairs responses. uh, Rouse is always there to help you all. I understand that there have been some problems about notes, etc., not reaching you all. We will resolve. We are trying to resolve those issues. Please also look at our website. It has the methods and means to actually ask for the notes uh, whenever you wanted. So follow all the channels which we have given out in our description box also. With that, thank you very much, and thank you, Brigadier Bhatia. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind, sir.